Good morning, everyone. Survived the rainstorm this morning, right? San Diego people are really happy to see the rain. I'm sure you are not, but it's a great pleasure to be here to see all my friends and colleagues and talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, which is training of veterinarians for biomedical research. So it's a great opportunity for all of you in the audience to participate in this discussion this morning. And I thought the way to kick this panel off is to give you a brief summation of a training program within the context of OR that funds these T32s. And it's always good to reach back and look at strategic plans, and this is one that was incorporated to cover 2009 to 2013, and to recognize, as we all do in this audience, the importance of veterinarians in various facets of veterinary medicine that don't include a private practice. And as a prediction of this conference, they highlighted the importance of one medicine, one health, and the issue that we've been discussing during the last day, the partnership between human and veterinary medicine. And we're going to touch upon this more at the summary portion of this discussion this morning about the challenges of recruiting, training, and retaining veterinarians to fill these research roles. I think we all recognize that this is a constant challenge and one in which we have to be attentive to at all times to make sure that we have the appropriate individuals in the pipeline to carry on the research mission. And as we recognize, as has been illustrated yesterday, the importance of animal models and the critical role that veterinarians play in that process. So this just gives you an overview, again, a couple years old, but which I think we need to emphasize the importance of ORA funding these training programs. They've been a critical element in providing veterinarians and biomedical research for a number of decades, and we encourage, the populace in general encourages that these programs continue and hopefully to grow in terms of numbers of awards offered to different institutions. They've also introduced the pre-doctoral training program that supports veterinarians while they're in vet school, and this is a relatively new initiative on their part, and I too hope that that will expand as we move forward. And how many of you participated in the T35 program? So there's quite a few hands up, and one of the singular elements that I think that have been most successful in the ORA funding mechanisms are the T35, which introduces the veterinary student to careers in biomedical research. It gives them a flavor of what they can expect if they go into biomedical research, and it's a great recruiting tool. So I then, again, emphasize the importance of this program to be perpetuated in the future and, again, hopefully grow in terms of funding mechanism. And again, this program, as T32s, are throughout the United States and cover 27 different institutions in 23 different states. So we're going to take the next 3 minutes to just give you an idea of what a T32 program consists of, so we can have it as a platform for discussion and debate as we move forward on this panel this morning. So typically the T32 training program is 3 years long. Many of these programs have a PhD option, which again is another 2 to 3 or more years. And it's again, these T30 programs are a strong emphasis in developing research skills for veterinarians, and provides these programs provide opportunity for the students to participate in graduate programs for their PhD or during their 3-year fellowship. I can't emphasize the importance of having these training programs integrated into your research infrastructure at your respective institutions. That's the whole purpose of these training programs, is to foster an environment of robust research and inquiry, and to have the students participate in this process during their 3 years that they spend in this T32 program. And again, this is prompted by your colleagues at your various institutions who have NIH-sponsored research programs, which allows these students to choose from a broad coverage of subject matter in academically rigorous labs, and to, again, foster the importance of individual research by these fellows, and very importantly for the veterinarian, in my mind, to enter into collaborative arrangements during their fellowship, but hopefully to mold them for careers in biomedical research, whether as a PI or an important member of a collaborative team that undertakes various research projects. So again, one would suspect, and it's true in these T32 programs, that there is a lot of interaction with the students in terms of exposure to research, which consists of, as one would expect, seminars in various disciplines such as molecular biology, the different facets, research seminars, departmental seminars. Sometimes our fellows complain that they're spending all their time listening to other people talk, but again, it's very important in terms of their career development that they're involved in this activity. And we also like to emphasize the importance of experience in grant writing, and obviously for the publication of important papers, peer-reviewed papers, to have ability for scientific writing. And we introduce them to a wide variety of assets in terms of the written literature on these subjects. This is one on scientific and medical writing for investigators. And of course, many of you in the audience realize they even now have a grant applications writer's workbook. So this is all encompassed in this period of time to introduce these students to careers in biomedical research. And along with the graduate level courses, as I mentioned, we have the PhD option. And of course, for NIH programs, it's important to remember that we want to recruit and retain and enhance diversity in our student body, and also to teach the students about responsible conduct of research. So obviously, we've set a high bar for these students, and it's like this slide predicts, it's the high adrenaline fitness program. And one could also envision that for our students who are pursuing postdoctoral training in comparative medicine. So with that, I'll turn it over to Peter, and we'll continue the discussion.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to share a few thoughts about some of these issues. And from my perspective, I've been in medical schools virtually all of my career, and my big thing is trying to address this and trying to get trainees is to expand our outreach and who actually learns about what veterinarians can do in biomedical research and enhance the quality. Training of veterinarians and having impact in the medical schools, I think, is going to be based not so much on labels, but more of the culture, as we were talking this morning. So that if you have DVM trainees coming into a medical school and they do extremely well, people will say, I want more of those. In my own career, when I look back at my failings and successes, I think the one thing that's given me whatever success I've had is my training as a veterinarian. And it is very useful in the lab. You can immediately do things with animal models. You understand disease. And I think if we get successes, that's going to have a lot of impact in helping people get recognized for what they can do. In our training program, I look at breaking it down to the applicants, getting them involved in outstanding labs, the challenges in funding, and then other mentoring support issues. And the pipeline, I think, suffers a little bit because a lot of people don't understand what DVM grads can do. And some of this reflects my own views and approaches, but if every one of us went back and ourselves or our colleagues went out to high schools and middle schools to talk about the role of veterinarians in society or in human health, you would start to plant the seeds that I think would expose people early enough to some of these programs. We try to do things with undergrads and pre-vet programs along this idea, and I think admissions programs also have to select for more people interested in research. And Michael Larimore has talked a lot about this, reflecting not just the diversity and cultural diversities and socioeconomic diversities in our applicants, but also the diverse roles of veterinarians in societies and making sure that we get students that reflect this. In medical schools, it's amazing how many of these applicants have 1 or 2 research publications to get into medical school. I'm not sure we have as many in that situation in veterinary school. I think career days is sort of interesting. I'm talking to some people about the challenges of going through all of the training, and you have a family, when do you start a family? I tell people that there's no good time to have a family. It's always going to be work, and you adjust and you make it work. But academics, my wife and I decided that academics was going to be more flexible than both of us being in practice. And so there's actually some real reasons to benefit from an academic career with some of that flexibility. The NIH Mariel program I just got exposed to last year, that is an outstanding program for undergraduate veterinarians to see what research is like and decide if it's for them or not. And I just hope that continues. I really was impressed with that, and I thought it was fabulous. And the other thing is, I think some of I'll touch on in a second, is the PhD trainees actually need more mentoring sometimes, and some of the things they get. And one of the things we're finding in San Diego is palm trees and sunshine actually helps in our recruitment as well. So this often maligned slides come up in a few presentations, so I had to take my own shot at the Swedes. But I can't see many people out there, but I would just ask a question. If we ignore the primate centers, how many people know veterinarians who had a human disease-oriented center, like a P30? Who would that be? Not you, but the guy or person. That. Yeah, no, Michael, who's the person that has a P30 or something like that? A veterinarian? Not PPG. Disease center. There aren't a lot. There aren't a lot, but there are some. And Enrique Rosengert at UCLA leads a center in digestive diseases, a P30 funded through NIDDK. And when you look at this cartoon, there's virtually nothing about GI, so I redesigned it my way. And it is a wonderful opportunity. When you look at the microbiome, I was a little surprised that wasn't touched on more here, because it's not just the exchange of pathogens from animals to humans, but the exchange of normal commensals through the environment, I think, is very much a One Health issue. These things impact, we heard yesterday, about 80% of people will die of cancer. Probably half those cancers are either caused by microbes or modified by microbes. And it goes through the list: cardiovascular disease, growth, obesity, metabolic disorders, lung disease, behavior. I didn't even mention GI disease. There's just a huge outreach impact from these bugs that I was surprised that we didn't touch on here. So as the evangelism continues, I think we have to be addressing all medical disciplines and not focusing on cancer or any one or two other ones. I think that the opportunities in One Health and in training people will be successful. I think it's a good idea for those of us who have the exposure to go into the medical schools and try to give a lecture related to One Health. and get the conversations going more amongst the faculty and the students, so that our trainees actually will be recognized for what they can contribute and participate. And I think funding is a challenge. Some supplemental slots for veterinarians or MD PhDs in One Health projects, for example, on the T32 or MSTP programs. If you put money out there with strings attached, those PIs will say, I want that new slot, well, it's got to be a veterinarian. Okay. And before you know it, it will actually change the culture because the money will attract them. The CTSAs, I think, would be interesting. It was interesting hearing about the program yesterday. But pilot projects related to One Health or cores related to better animal models and translational medicine would be building on an existing system, and that could be done collaboratively with different institutes. Or you could do my approach, which is to marry a physician. So my wife's a gastroenterologist. We both study GI infections, and she does the IRBs. I do the IACUC, and we've just functioned that way for some time now. So who's our audience? We're in medical schools trying to talk about people. This is a paper by Ajit Varkey, and just doing a survey about thoughts on evolution. And if you go through the list, you can sort of see what the heterogeneity is and people's enthusiasm for or against evolution. And this survey wasn't done at Walmart or NRA or something like that. This is the medical class at UCSD. And so to talk about One Health and what the animals are contributing to human health and so forth is not going to be accepted by everybody. You just have to anticipate that as well. My next trivia question: who can name a veterinarian who has 10 or 9 Nature papers in the last 10 years? Cody Ravichandran, who is the Ravi is the chair of microbiology, University of Virginia, has 9 Nature papers in the last 10 years. This is an outstanding lab for people to train in. He does work relevant to asthma, he does work relevant to GI disease in basic science, and I think getting the people into these really outstanding labs is very important. Using a range of mentors, not just veterinarians, is important. And I think that the key part is this transition of veterinarians into other parts of their careers. So I was looking at some CVs as they come in. If you were in the study section, you would say, this is pretty veterinary. And I would encourage mentors to get them, chapter 1 of their thesis, they could throw into a review about the relevance of some of these animal models to human disease. And all of a sudden, somebody reading that CV has gone from skepticism to curiosity. And I think that would be helpful to pass on. Funding is a bit of a dilemma. Post-DVM, usually I tell people to expect 9 years of training before you get a faculty position. And they hate to hear that. But a lot of very successful people have had that degree of training, and it's all been enjoyable in the context of them doing it. But getting that funded is challenging. So MDs can do 3 or 4 years of residency, 3 or 4 years of fellowship, all paid for by the institution, and then they go on a T32. They don't do a PhD, and they're ready for a K award. And we just don't have that funding base. And so people, if they do a residency and then a PhD, they've used up their T32 eligibility, and they're stuck. And I think the mentors really have to get them ready to apply for other funding opportunities in their first year of their PhDs. So by the time they're getting to their 3rd and 4th year, they actually have a funding plan. Loan repayment, absolutely an important asset. A lot of people in academics are coming from other countries. I'm from Canada. I didn't have a student loan. It was affordable to go into academics. Didn't have to worry about getting to practice and getting an immediate income to pay off a student loan. The ongoing support, I ask mentors to think about being able to pay for years 4 and 5 after they come off the T32, particularly if the candidate has limited publications and experience in research. I think the T32 slots, I like to see them support a collaboration between 2 PIs that hopefully leads to new money. But if one PI's funding is a little bit rocky, and then these days that happens, the collaborator might be willing to step up and help out so that the candidate's not stuck. And then finally, I think in addition to the PhD project mentor, various people in our program, Christina Sigurdsson or myself, will meet with people and you talk about careers, you talk about the dilemmas, we've been through it, and I think it's very important that they get that feedback as well. And on that, I'll close.
So our next speaker, Bruce, you are going to come up, Bruce, and give a perspective of a non-veterinary scientist, PhD, and the approach, Peter's experience in terms of this subject matter. Thanks, Peter.
Hi. So my background, well, you should leave those up. You know, I can't see the people, and the lights are just blasting at us. Anyway, so I have managed several PhD training programs for the National Institute of General Medical Sciences, and I'm presently managing the MD PhD training program, MSTP as it's called. Let me just click through the slides pretty quickly. The MSTP is actually the largest training program that NIH runs. There are 45 grants that actually support 60 institutions when you count grants that have 2 institutions participating in the same training, and 900 some trainees each year being supported through the program. I've drawn the map here. You can see they are predominantly on the coasts and the Northeast. The next slide shows the listing of those institutions where there is an MSTP award and an associated veterinary school. Now, I don't know that this is exhaustive because I'm not sure whether I've fully accounted for all the veterinary schools in the country. But these are the ones that are obvious to me. The only one that has a significant veterinary component to the MSTP program at the moment is University of Pennsylvania. Skip Brass is the director of that program. Michael Atchison is the director for the DVM or VMD component. It's one of the largest of the MSTP programs, and a modest share of those 44 slots, something on the order of 4 to 6, depending on the number of enrollees each year, go to support veterinary PhD training. The other institutions I've listed are ones where one could envision easily a DVM component becoming part of the MSTP program. I think one would first have to start with a clear understanding of what the goals of such interaction would be, what the benefits would be for the DVMs at those institutions, what the benefits would be to the MSTP program. And speaking just from the MSTP side, I think anything that broadens the base of science that the MD PhD trainees are exposed to as they go through their training is probably to the good. Better understanding of animal models, comparative physiology will undoubtedly be helpful to their research careers down the line. A few of the comments, now Cornell vet schools, I won't say unfortunately, I went to Cornell in Ithaca myself, and it's a swell place. But it is a long, long way from New York City. One has to work on connections at these long-distance interactions. There are, in fact, a few people associated with the vet school in Lafayette that interact with the medical training group at Indianapolis. But again, it's not something where you can be as involved as if you're on site. Penn has the advantage that the veterinary school is just down the block from the medical school. The other thing that you need, well, we'll come to some of that later. Let's talk about other possibilities. So the other possibilities that come to mind are institutions which do not currently have an MSTP program, but which have a reasonable shot at getting one. So there's 45 programs in the country. There's some 100-ish MD, PhD training programs of some kind. That is, many of the medical schools say they have an MD, PhD training program. We're not going to fund them all. And those that are funded have to be extremely competitive with the current group. I think these are institutions where there is a sufficient critical mass of research, for one thing, sufficient student pool within the medical pool, that there's a reasonable chance they would be able to achieve an MSTP award. And they have a co-located veterinary school. So I think that might be another group. I don't want to exclude anybody. You know, if you can figure out a way to say that the UCSD MSTP, you may know Paul Insel runs that. You know, well, Paul, we think it would be good to interact. How shall we go at doing this? There's nothing that would preclude that kind of interaction, except, of course, the challenges we'll come to. So the challenges. First, you have to figure out what the program is that you're going to be offering students. What are the activities that can be in common between the MD PhD training and the veterinary PhD training that make sense? And they are things like the journal clubs, grand rounds, retreats, seminars, social activities, where the presence of a large body of MSTP students may make a home for an otherwise small body of research-oriented DVM students. Joint advising by members of both communities, where if part of our goal in this whole effort is to have more DVMs participate in leadership positions in the medical establishment, medical research establishment, more become principal investigators, not only veterinary oversight of other people's research, but leaders of their own research programs. Then advising through the medical establishment is probably going to be beneficial. I know that both Atchison and Brass talk to every student every year that's associated with that program. Graduate courses are going to be graduate courses, whether you're in one program or another. Laboratory research next to each other at the bench doing similar kinds of research. Thus far, most of the research areas that Skip tells me the people at Penn actually go into are basic biomedical research. One of the arguments that has come up perennially with the MSTP program is whether too much of the training is focused on basic biomedical research and more of it needs to be involved with more clinical research. Now, how that would play out for DVM PhDs, is there some opportunity for DVM PhDs to do the same sorts of clinical shadowing of the medical operation that the MSTP students are expected to do? Considerations. I've kind of already alluded to how do you integrate the activities. What are similarities and differences? Are there any common core curricula? I gather things like basic biochem, cell, molecular biology. You can have the same course maybe. I just brought up the question of whether there's a clinical training opportunity, clinical cross-training. Obviously the vet med students are going to have a very substantially different clinical exposure, but is there any value to having some cross-exposure? I'm sure there actually would be from the MD to vet med side. Timing, and when is it that you're going to do your research? Most of the MD PhD programs are currently set up to be 2 years of medical training, 4 years out of PhD research, and then 2 years of rotations, clerkships. I gather most people spend the spring interviewing for residencies. Well, that doesn't have to be that way, and the programs are becoming more and more intermixed. That is, the research component time and the medical training time are becoming more sandwiched together. A lot of programs are getting 1 full year of clerkships in during the first 2.5 years or even 2 years, and then going into the PhD years. There's one program that proudly announced they've squeezed their whole operation down to 7 years now instead of 8 years. Longitudinal activities are considered important in the MSTP program so that Graduate students who've gone off for 4 years of bench research don't completely lose track of what it's like to interact with patients. They typically have one day a week something going on. Is there a similar kind of thing that would be important for the veterinary trainees or not? And how would you work that out? Commitment of students. Now that's the key thing to the whole MSTP operation. They have a very large pool of highly committed students who want to do this. They come in with excellent grades, excellent MCATs that everybody swears they ignore, but they all collect them anyway. Grades, MCATs, almost everybody's had laboratory experience, at least 1 or 2 summer rotation kinds of things before they ever get in the door. So they're pretty well sure that the students will succeed in the programs if they accept them. So very low attrition rate. Some of the things that are disturbing to the students and the programs work very hard at, a retention. The students come in with one cohort of medical students. They rapidly get separated from them. They need to make new friends with a different bunch of people. They have to do more work. They need guidance on multiple transitions, about 3 or 4 during the year, the program. So I started as a med student. Now, which labs am I going to work in? What graduate majors am I going to study? So on. They need advice there. When they go back into the clinics, they need advice on the rotations they're going to sign up for. When they're leaving, what residencies. I gather veterinarians do not normally do residencies. Is that kind of correct? No? 25% do a residency. Less than half. Well, almost all of the MSTP people do a residency, and there's some concern about that because then they are spending another bunch of years doing clinical work and they're away from research. So that's a concern with this program. How to keep people engaged in research during those transitions. The biggest bear, I think, for everyone is how do you pay for it? And the MSTP program has had for years, it's kind of an unwritten rule because we can't write it down, that every student will get their way paid all the way through by someone. And the institutions that aren't willing to put that in writing in their application don't get a good score from the reviewers, so they don't get a grant. The MSTP award itself really only covers 25% of the cost, about 2 years out of 8 years worth of training. Somebody else comes up with the rest of that, and the institutions chip in at least 2 years generally of either the first year or the last years that they're going to cover the medical school tuition. The other unwritten rule is people come out without debt. That's kind of one of the number one goals of the whole program. The rest is financed mostly by RPGs, research project grants of the faculty during the research years. Many people apply for and do get their own individual fellowships. Some get appointed to other institute training grants. So that's the rundown on the MSTP, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So, Mark, how are you? Good to see you. So, we were wondering if you were going to make it here. I'm glad you did. So, yeah, I know you live here, right? So Dr. Mark Simpson's going to give us a perspective of training from the intramural perspective, and we're delighted to have you with us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm Mark Simpson, and I am in the intramural research program. So my laboratory, my program is right here on this campus, and I work for the National Cancer Institute. Although our training experience covers 3 other institutes, I just want to be very brief in this. I think in terms of the challenges and the needs and so forth, they've really been outlined quite well. I think we're really capturing and focusing in on some of that now, and perhaps we can coalesce our energies to try to pursue some of those in a focused way, because I think that's probably what's been missing in some regard up until this point. Even though I'm internal and I'm right here, I can't advocate or lobby for any of these things. That has to come from the outside, from your community, in order to do that. But I have participated and benefited, I think, the process in some regards, in that I can channel some of the conversations, and I've been involved in some of those, and I'm happy to do that in the future whenever I can. So briefly then, what is intramural program involvement in One Health sort of training orientation? And we're now in our 13th year of a program which is basically a combined residency PhD program that I direct, and involves four NIH institutes and 5 veterinary school programs that we have. And so intramural money is used to support veterinarians in this training, both at the university, which the students generally spend the first 2 years of their post-DVM educational experience at, the veterinary school taking the required didactic graduate coursework, as well as undertaking the core experience necessary for training in diagnostic pathology. And then there's a relocation that occurs, a transition, and that student then comes to the intramural program to be placed within a laboratory with one of the principal investigators here at the NIH, and undertakes their dissertation research training and gets credit for that back at the university, ultimately getting the degree awarded from that partnership university. We also have a summer veterinary student program, so I bring about 6 veterinary students from all over the nation here to spend their summer in the NIH intramural program laboratories. Those students then at the end of the summer participate in the NIH Mariel Veterinary Scholars Symposium. We've been doing that also for about 12 years. And then I should also mention the Medical Research Scholars Program, which is an opportunity for veterinary students to take a year out of their veterinary curriculum and immerse themselves in a 1-year laboratory research program. Here at the NIH in the intramural program is where that year occurs. And the veterinary students compete with medical and dental students on an equal platform for those positions, and do quite well in that competition when we can get the students to apply for it. And that has been a challenge for us to get veterinary student applications, and to get, I think, an awareness and also support from the veterinary institutions to be willing to encourage and support to send their students. There's a significant sort of sociological hurdle to having the students step out of that class, as you mentioned, for a year in a transition, and then come back to veterinary school to finish the DVM degree after having had that 1 year out of research experience. But NIH is interested in having this kind of experience because we train so many physician scientists and basic scientists here in the intramural program. Over 3,000 fellows at any one time are training here, and this gives them the opportunity. So not only are we able to offer this research training opportunity to veterinary students and veterinarians, but we're exposing all this whole host of other investigators in their training period with the contributions to science that veterinarians can make in and above what is made by veterinary medicine to the use of animals in research. These individuals are all embedded in the intramural laboratories as a team member focused on the science, and they are not here to do clinical support work. So that's the kind of experience they get. And I think one of the true benefits I believe that the trainees see out of this program is there's a sufficient level of training provided that they can actually then envision what the possibilities are for a career potentially as an investigator. Not all of our trainees obviously are going to pursue that, but we're way above the national average, even though we're a very young program, admittedly. We're way above the national average in terms of numbers of individuals who have chosen to launch a career toward independence. So out of our 10 DVM PhD graduates from this program, six of them are in tenure track investigator positions in a variety of institutions, so both medical and veterinary. So I think that that's one of the other issues when we talk about DVM PhD programs and providing PhD education to our veterinary. There's always this push and pull with respect to how long individuals can be expected to stay in training, but I think that what's also required is a sufficient environment, level of funding support, others around who are pursuing investigative tracks where they get the appropriate role modeling and mentoring in order to see the possibilities of what is possible, because that is a struggle because of funding levels. It's not because of interest or talent, but it has to do with resources, I think. So I'll stop there.
So our last speaker is Dr. Michael Cant from Oregon State University, and he's going to give us a comparative biology bent to this training program, and look forward to your talk.
Thank you. So I'm Michael Cant at Oregon State University. I have a split appointment between the Department of Microbiology, which is housed in two colleges, College of Science and College of Ag, and then my other 50% is in the College of Veterinary Medicine. And we have a T32 training program, training veterinarians in aquatic models, and this has been going on for a little over 5 years, and we're at the point right now we're trying to get in the resubmission to continue our program. So I'll talk a little bit about this program. So a little bit of the background why we have it here at Oregon State University. So Oregon State University's got a small veterinary college. We became a four-year college probably about 12 years ago. And we're one of the smaller colleges, if not the smallest in the country. However, in contrast, we have I would say, tier one, world-class fisheries, aquatic biology, marine sciences program at Oregon State University. Our fisheries school is ranked number 2 in the country. And then in addition to that, why this is a good place for veterinarians to learn about aquatics. So we have all the salmonids and marine fisheries and all that type of aspects of fisheries biology. We have very close connections with the University of Oregon and the Zebrafish International Resource Center. I'm a co-PI at that center, and we have other researchers on campus, such as Robert Tangway, that have very large zebrafish programs. He works in toxicology, and at his lab, we actually established the only SPF zebrafish population or colonies. We have multiple lines at that institute, at the Sinneberg Aquatic Research Laboratory. So we've been running this program for about 3 years, and I went through talking about why this is a great place to have such a program, and why maybe take a step back on why it's important to include the aquatics. The zebrafish, this is really led by zebrafish, so we kind of go back and forth. You know, there are other aquatic models such as Medaka and salmonids and Xenopus. We don't do much with Xenopus at our campus, but so we're really fish oriented. That the tremendous growth in zebrafish, and I was actually a little surprised yesterday talking about translational research, as I basically heard nothing about zebrafish. When I hear researchers saying the problems with animal models with the limited numbers, we could have 100,000 zebrafish in this room right here, and it's a fraction of the cost. Of course, on the other side, folks would say, well, the zebrafish is so taxonomically and phylogenetically distant from humans that the translational research would be impaired by this. But actually, when so much research is done at the cellular to the molecular level, that when we start getting further and further down to those aspects, we see more and more, actually remarkable similarities between the zebrafish and translational opportunities. And I'll just kind of throw out something that I think that one could be considered. We often talk about how do you translate a result with a mouse to a human But if we see the same effect in a zebrafish and in a mouse, there's a very good chance that that same endpoint would occur in a human being. That's almost the power of the distance in the taxonomic relationship with zebrafish. So that's enough on the plug on the zebrafish. Talk a little bit more about our program. So we have 3 candidates. We have 3 slots, I'll talk about. So we're talking about the problems. It's a new program that we've just been running for 5 years, and we were as faculty, and I was the deputy director. Now I've taken over as director. Robert Tangway was the director of the program. We've learned very rapidly from our mistakes. The problem I think we had when we first established this program is that it attracted veterinarians that had interest in fish. And I call them the kind of, I guess one would say this facetiously, the swim with the dolphins type veterinarians, is that their dream in life is really to work at a public aquarium, and that's great, and be clinical. And they saw this opportunity to be funded to continue to do work with fish. And so that's not a good fit. And I learned quickly that, and this is the reason why veterinarians go to veterinary school, is their strong interest in clinics. And it was a real pull to pull them away from wanting to do externships at public aquariums and do surgeries on koi carp, etc. So we've gone the other way, and I think we've quickly changed this, is we're looking for people that are interested in research more than fish, and we can teach them the fish part. And so we've really turned things around, I believe, in the type of candidates that we have right now. I think one of our most outstanding ones is a board-certified veterinarian, board-certified pathology, but had no training in fish, and he just rapidly learned the fish aspects. Versus the other way, if someone comes with a fair amount of fish experience, we're pulling them away from the clinics, and it's easier to push people into fish than pull them away from the clinical aspects. So we've learned from that, and refocusing our efforts towards those type of people, and also the other aspects. So I'll back up a little bit about our I got all my notes, but I'm just going to talk here for a few minutes, if that's okay. So we have, you've heard about how these training programs go. Ours is very similar to others in that they have the option of either doing just a postdoc, a master's degree, or a PhD. And of course, if they're going to do a PhD, we have to match them up with a mentor that has funding, that good chance that they will be able to be funded after their 3 years, because they're limited to 3 years. It's going to take longer than 3 years to get a PhD. So we've had, so our first candidate talk about what, we've had questions about where will people go with this type of training, this unique training and research with aquatic models. Our first candidate immediately got a faculty position at University of Arkansas. We have other candidates that have gone through successful ones. Our most recent one, Amber Roger, she came in with a PhD. She came from the DVM PhD program at UC Davis, so she just is doing a 1-year postdoc. And after this is completed, she's going to the UC Global Health program to work on toxic algae as it relates to humans in University of Victoria. So I'm pretty confident that that with this training, people will be able to to find jobs in research afterwards. Another aspect that we've had some success with, and I think I'd like to continue to foster, is we have our traditional T32 program, room for 3 candidates. We've had lab animal veterinarians come and do their research that are not part of the program, but we have this infrastructure, we have veterinarians in training, so it's attracted other veterinarians, lab animal veterinarians that need to do a research project and have come to our institute and done research in our programs. And that's another aspect that I think is very useful. One of them is Shireen Collymore from the Sloan Kettering program, did research with me on treating zebrafish for nematode infections and got her publication that's needed. Also, so we have this, there's something a little bit different about the zebrafish, the way zebrafish research is done is there are centralized facilities, but many laboratories have their own zebrafish colonies. And that's one of the beauties. There's kind of friction back and forth. How do you work with the IACUC when you don't have centralized facilities, when you could basically set up a zebrafish lab in a closet? But that's a positive for these veterinarians in training, is that they will automatically get that clinical applied aspects, how to maintain zebrafish health by just doing their research project. So in other words, they're doing they fit in nicely with in vivo studies. They kind of naturally are drawn to those type of studies, and that seems like where they really do well in. And they're also having to take care of their own fish, so they're getting their clinical training in maintenance of zebrafish, et cetera, at the same time that they're doing their research. So I think that, that the solutions for moving forward, as I've said, will be more targeting the people that have a research interest, targeting more people coming from more of a lab animal background, and we've already are doing that, and it seems to be working out pretty well. So I think I've covered the main points of our program there. Thank you.
So, yeah, do we have any time for questions?
Yeah, we have about 12 minutes, and we have a session after the
Right, exactly. So, everybody with me? Michael.
Michael Atchison, University of Pennsylvania. I just wanted to make a couple of follow-ups to what Dr. Prush was talking about on MSTP and T32 programs. It is hard to break into the T32 system, but veterinarians actually have a unique positive angle on this. I serve on the MB study section that reviews these T grants. And, when you've seen the fifth microbiology and virology training grant come through, they all blend together a little bit. The ones that have a veterinary component stand out. You have a unique angle, and to get a new grant means somebody lost one because it's a zero-sum game. But if you're coming with another angle, having the veterinary component and One Health is generally perceived as a positive. So I want to encourage schools to put them in. Outcomes are really important. I think we have an advantage there too, because at least in our combined degree program, fewer do residencies than the MD PhDs. So we lose fewer to clinical medicine. So 85% go into research careers, as opposed to the MD average is probably around 75%, 70%. So I think veterinary schools have an advantage there as well. So I just want to be encouraging that there are opportunities, and we do come with certain strengths.
Thank you, Michael. Other comments, questions?
Michael Elmore, UC Davis. I think that the VSTP programs, as mentioned, we don't have traditional slots, but we do fund them through other mechanisms and endowments, and we're struggling to do that, because we only can afford 2 slots, and as you mentioned, our goal is the same, is to fund them entirely through all of their training. The graduate student portions are really picked up by the graduate mentors typically, but by combining with a T32 year grant, those often are eligible for that during that time period. So, there are opportunities, I think, to leverage that if we had additional NIH funds. And as you mentioned, I appreciate your point that the MSTP programs really only pay for 25%, and that partnership with universities is really critical. And I think that would be true with our out there in the extra world environment. If we did have a VSTP program, we do have schools that have other resources to apply towards the support of those.
I just wanted to add that the number I throw out for budgeting is it's $250,000 roughly or more for every DVM PhD student. So it's a chunk of coin to come up with.
Sue?
Yes, I was wondering if there's, Sue Vander from Colorado State University, whether there's ever been consideration or is possibility for a supplement award to an existing MSTP that would be an adjunct versus taking some of the slots that already exist in the funded program.
That's a swell suggestion.
In other words, go for it.
Okay. And
Yes, Deb. Oh, I'm sorry, Sue, please.
And then I just had a comment for Mark about the NIH program that we're trying to recruit students to do their one-year fellowship, and that I would make a similar comment about the number of veterinary students just overall compared to the number of medical students. So I think we try to do what we can to recruit, but I would expect you're not going to get the same numbers for sure, just because there's I don't know how many nationally, but probably 3,000 or 4,000. And that would be all of the students.
That's understood, and in the numbers. I think what we do see, what I can say is that probably the acceptance rate is actually on a percentage basis higher. So they're quite successful, and I can speak that the program is actively seeking their inclusion as a form of disciplinary diversity. So if we can get small numbers, we'll take small numbers.
Yes, Deborah.
Debbie Kochever, Tufts University. Do we have metrics, I think we do, on 5 years out, what are the DV and PhD trainees doing? What's their success rate? How long do they stick in science? I mean, clearly it's a difficult time to mentor anyone into the field because of the funding sort of situation. And so what do you know about that in terms of outcomes?
That's a good question. I don't know a lot about that. But perhaps Dr. Mills could talk about the success rate and retention rate for scientists in general from the physician manpower study. Jerry?
Sherry Mills. I guess in this role, I'm here as the co-chair of the Physician Scientist Workforce Report that Jim was on our committee. So one of the problems we had, one of the many problems we had with making recommendations on that report, are we all familiar with the report I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Is lack of data. So when the question was asked, my question was, who has that data? We were challenged, particularly with the veterinary science community, in that there doesn't seem to be a central foci where I can go and obtain various data, particularly given the decentralized nature of your training programs, and if they're not funded by NIH. I don't have access to those data. I'm willing to ask someone, but we had conversations with all the leading organizations in veterinary science or veterinary medicine. They didn't have the data, and when we asked the questions, they said, wouldn't that be great to know? And so it's a little challenging for me to respond to that when I don't have the information and I don't know where to go for it. So if there is a place that we have missed, I'm certainly willing to pursue that. But I actually don't know where I'd find that information.
Right. I think that is a critical. Thanks for asking the question, Deborah. I think that's a critical element. And I know the AVMA and AVMC has a certain database. Ted, I saw you there earlier. Ted, can you comment on
yes,
database?
Ted Mashima, Association of American Veterinary Medical let me get my association correct. Association of American Veterinary Medical Colleges. And Dr. Mills, you're correct. We did not have that data that you desired at the correct level. There's a gap in terms of our collection, and I think it's something we're going to be committed to collecting. We collect it while they're in vet school, and then there's a different set of individuals collecting it outside in the veterinary community, and there's a gap. So I think that's something that we have to fill in as a void. So appreciate that comment.
So Jim, I would just add, I know people who are applying for summer research grants do have to account for where those students sort of have ended up in the pipeline.
Right.
But it doesn't follow, it's an imperfect system, so it does feel like we ought to be looking at that just as an important outcome.
Well, yeah, I think that all of these avenues are appropriate and much needed. And Sherry, did you have one?
I wanted to say that MDs don't have all the data either. Lack of data was a problem for the committee, and all of the communities were looking at dentists, vets, and physicians and nurse PhDs. I think what we found with the AAMC, American for Medical Colleges, is that since, as Peter suggested, we at NIH don't fund all of the MD, PhD programs across the country, we didn't have outcome data on the folks that we don't fund either. And so the AAMC has undertaken a census led by Skip Brass at Penn to collect that information. When I talked to him last week, they had somewhere around a early 70% response rate in trying to find out everybody who's been through those programs, where they've been and what they're up to. So we didn't have that data for physicians as well, but I'm not aware that the vets are collecting it. So it might be an opportunity for somebody to undertake that. That was a study not funded by NIH, but by the AAMC, and actually led by Skip. So there's an opportunity there, and perhaps that might be a connection that they could make with Dr. Brass to see how they went about it to do that. The other thing I might add, because I'm guessing this will come up later, so we made the report, and so probably everyone is wondering, so what happened to that? So we did actually form an implementation committee here at NIH, which I am also chairing. We have a set of implementation recommendations. We've not gotten a blessing or a beating, if you will, from Dr. Collins on what he wants to do and how much of that he wants to fund. But I will say that, not even in a self-serving way, I assigned myself to veterinarians during the original committee because I didn't know much about veterinary research in biomedical context. And I am now like a big champion for you. So
Good.
So when we have been putting our implementations in place, I have got my eyes and ears out for you. Peter, I think, can attest to that. We actually have some very specific things that, if approved and money put forward, I think would alleviate some of these stresses that you're seeing. But as you know, and as others have alluded to put money into this means something doesn't go into something else. And so we shall see what Francis and Larry want to do. Hopefully I have an audience with them in the next couple of weeks to talk about that, and then I think I'll be in a much better place to actually say what it is we're thinking about. But I will say that we took the recommendations of the committee and the subgroup that Jim and Sue Vanderwood were co-chairs for. We did take that, we've integrated it, and in mid-July, the division director for biomedical research here at NIH will be coming on board, hopefully. And in that role, when we were recruiting for that position, we wanted to make sure that he or she, since they haven't been named yet, would not only be looking at PhDs, but we were looking at the entire biomedical workforce, including vets. So that was really a screener that I had when I looked at candidates. So I'd like you to believe that we are taking you guys seriously. We hear your voice. We understand your role. And I think we have an opportunity in the next little bit to try and get some of these challenges addressed that you're talking about today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mills. So I think we've run out of time. So we're next on the docket. I want to thank all of the panelists for their excellent presentations.